Hello and welcome to a brand new series coming to you straight from up there.
Yes, this is Fifth Gear HQ. Keep up the good work, chaps. Where we'll be coming from each week, and the good news is we're now an hour long.
Which means we'll have a lot more time to show you what we've been up to this summer.
Noise is just so awesome.
It's going to be a cracking series, and we start with the most exciting new car to be launched this year, the latest addition to the Aston Martin family.
It costs £80,000 and they're calling it the most desirable sports car in the world. It takes 100 craftsmen 180 hours to build a V8 Vantage. Aston point out that complex fittings, like the assembly for their pretty headlamps, is still done better by hand than robot. The Vantage's trump card is exclusivity. There are plans to build just 3,000 a year. By comparison, Porsche will make 10 times as many 911s. Add in a V8 that produces 380 bhp, which is more than a 911 Carrera S, and you can see why the waiting list is already more than 2 years long. The Vantage is a strict two-seater, although to improve luggage space, it has a hatchback. Inside, the stylish design continues, with dials, dashboard and switchgear all borrowed from the more expensive DB9. I was a little bit disappointed when I first fired up this 4.3 litre V8. Just burbled away like any old V8. And in fact, even though I'm out on the open road and using some revs, I still can't really hear anything like the sort of crescendo you get from a Ferrari or even a Porsche 911. And you're totally unaware of this wonderful sound, which is apparently following somewhere behind me in my slipstream. When you're driving the car, you're very aware of this huge dash panel in front of you, and in fact, manoeuvring around car parks at slow speeds, the visibility is a bit poor over this big front hump. And in a way, it makes you feel like you are in a great big Aston Martin. You don't really appreciate that the car is quite small around you. And the steering, the clutch and the gear change are all on the meaty side as well. You certainly feel like you're in a pucker Aston. The best thing about this car is the way it just points. The steering turns, the car turns with you. There's a wonderful symmetry of handling that just gives you so much confidence on the road. And that torquey V8 has that wall of acceleration. Gear change good, none of these flappy pedals. It's a proper car for proper racing drivers. Aston Martin have done a lot of development of this car on racetracks. So of course it'd be rude not to go and find a racetrack and really put it to the test. Surprised me on this racetrack because it's just so neutral and controlled. It finds the apex, it's okay, the front just pushes a bit wide on turn-in because this car is still a heavy car, but it's not dramatic. And There's no suddenness. There's little twitches of oversteer, the high-speed stuff, loads. There's just down to this hairpin, second gear, turn, floor, and yes, there's some glorious oversteer, but so beautifully controlled. It really is a sure-footed car. What we're doing, just about 120 miles an hour. Third gear, punch to second, find that apex, hit the throttle, second gear, easily controlled power slide, out of that corner at 90 miles an hour up to now third. In fact, this has to be the best Aston I've ever driven on a track.
Join us after the break when we'll be back in the office offering you the chance to win an Aston of your very own.
Before the break, we saw Tiff, there he goes, over the glorious swoops at Oulton Park in an Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and he said it was the best Aston he'd ever driven on a track. But that's not saying a lot, is it, Tiffy?
Well, no, not when you compare it to the great lumbering V8s of the 70s and 80s, but, you know, when you compare it to a Vanquish, you know, or the DB9, for example, you know, they're both pretty good handling cars, but that new V8 Vantage blows them both away. It's beautiful. But having said that, it still wouldn't be a 911 in a straight race.
How do you mean, why?
Well, the 911 is still a much nimbler car. It's 150 kilos lighter, but, you know, you can play with the weight transference. You can create a bit more understeer, create a bit more oversteer when you want it, whereas the Aston is just stuck in that one slot. Sure, footed, safe, solid, but not nimble.
So ultimately, it's still a big old Aston then?
Well, yeah, it feels like a big old Aston. Yeah, it's still got that Aston trait.
But it doesn't look like a big old Aston, because I think it's the best proportioned and the best looking Aston.
Yeah, the looks are what really sell it for me, and the name and the heritage of the car.
Which is a bit of a relief, because all those people who've been on a 2-year waiting list haven't put $5,000 down without even seeing the car.
I guess they know that, you know, they gambled on the fact that it's going to become a big seller, which it looks like it is, because, you know, our backroom team have found that you can get one in November if you paid 15, maybe even 20 grand over the odds. So there's going to be big markup on these cars when they first come out.
Also, they found a chap who bought 40 left-hand drive cars, just in case the people who'd ordered a right-hand drive car couldn't wait for theirs to be delivered, and they'll have the left hooker in the interim. But he's bought 40 of them.
I suppose there's nothing quite like owning an Aston. Which brings us neatly to this week's competition, because if you get lucky, you'll be able to say that you have an Aston of your own. Because the prize in this week's competition is one of the prettiest GT cars ever made, the Aston Martin DB7.
Our experts searched high and low for the right car and found an absolute corker at a specialist dealer near London. It cost £85,000 new and has a supercharged 3.2-litre V6 with a smooth 335 bhp. It'll do nearly 160 miles an hour and get to 60 in under 6 seconds. It's a two-owner car, has covered just 53,000 miles and comes with a full service history. It also comes with a more desirable automatic gearbox, air conditioning, electric heated seats and the optional Speedline alloys. What's more, we've sent it to the factory's exclusive works service department for a quick once-over. This is the place where the rich, famous and royals get their cars pampered. To be in with a chance of winning, all you've got to do is answer this simple question. What is the name of the fictional British secret agent known as 007? Is it A, James Bond, B, Simon Templar, or C, Johnny English? Call 09015 339955 to enter, or text GEAR plus A, B or C to 81555. Lines close at midday on Monday the 17th of October and we'll remind you of the numbers later in the show. You can enter the competition via our website at 5.tv/5thgear, which is full of brand new features we're all rather proud of.
Now, over the summer, we heard about a very exclusive car auction that was going to be full of very wealthy, very glamorous and very posh people. Obviously, this was a job for Tom.
Think of a car auction in the UK, and your mind invariably conjures up a picture of a horrible old barn in Norfolk somewhere, ringed by razor wire, where all the cars huddle outside against the rain before being driven into some kind of bullpen, surrounded by men in sheepskin coats, holding in one hand the Glasser's Guide, and in the other, some kind of indeterminate meat pie.
But not here. This is the most exclusive car auction in the world. We're at Maranello in Italy with some rich collectors for what amounts to Ferrari's very own garage sale. While private jets full of wealthy buyers were landing, we had a look round the 34 cars on offer. Together, they were worth in excess of $44 million, but some were more special than others. This 2004 ex-Schumacher F1 car is estimated to sell today for around £1.3 million, although it does come with a stipulation. To stop any rival teams buying it and plundering its secrets, the car won't be delivered by Ferrari until next year, by which time the technology will be considered out of date.
OK, so this might look like a bit of a beaten-up old 348, and you wonder why it's here in the auction at all. But as you look down it, it's got 348 doors with really weird, wide wheel arches. And then there's this big bit of plastic just covering up a gap. There's shades of 355 and 360, and this tail, it's just far too long. In fact, if you come round here, it's completely different on this side. Everything's completely strange. It's just a bag of bits. It's not until you look over the top that you realise that's actually an Enzo engine. So that's a 6-litre V12, and this is a prototype for the actual hypercar. Now, there's only one of these. Ferrari has never sold one of its prototypes before. This is something fit for a museum.
As is this, except for the past 9 years, a New York businessman has used it to take him to and from work every day. It's a 330 LM Testarossa from 1962, and it's worth at least £4 million. Talk about evocative commuting. Now this is a very special Enzo supercar. It was given as a gift by Ferrari to Pope John Paul II.
If you look in here, it's signed by Luca di Montezemolo, the president of Ferrari at the time. And what happened was, the Pope said that he'd like to auction the car in favour of the tsunami appeal. Now, if I just get my little translation out, this here says, "This Enzo is unique in the story of Ferrari as a symbol of solidarity inspired by a great Pope. This is a very cool car."
It was the 400th and final Enzo to be built. Second-hand models are currently being advertised for around £600,000, and the Pope's Enzo is estimated at £700,000, which, if you ask me, would make it a bargain. It's not just cars that are being auctioned off. There's all sorts of memorabilia on offer too. From engines to exhaust assemblies, anything Ferrari have found in their loft is being sold. You could even climb into a pair of Michael Schumacher's overalls, estimated at £6,000.
Now, we reckon this is the best buy in the entire auction. This is Michael Schumacher's race seat out of his F1 car. Now, this comes from the 2001 season, when Ferrari won both the Drivers' and the Constructors' Championship. And if you take a look at it, just round here, it's covered in gold foil to reflect heat away from Schumacher's multi-million-pound bottom. And up here, it's even got the airbags in it to inflate it to make sure it's a proper fit. Now, tonight, we're going to bid for it in the auction.
Quite a scary prospect, given that this was my first ever auction, and I'd be bidding alongside some really serious players from all over the world.
There was a dinner last night. Apparently some of the big hitters that have come with a lot of money ready to play were getting a bit vinoed up, you know, they're having a few lagers and talking about what they were going to buy. One guy was sat with a catalogue going, "How much is that? Not expensive enough. How much is that? Not expensive enough." You never know what they're going to buy. Was it the wine talking, or is there going to be big money spent here?
When the auction got underway, it didn't take long for some very big numbers to start flying around. And remember, they're bidding in euros.
We're starting at 550,000. Any advance at 2,100,000? Venduto. 1.100.000. Against the room, 900,000 now. 6,060,000. 7 million. 7,100,000. Se non ci sono più offerte. 50. We all done.
Lot 119 is that New York businessman's daily driver we valued at £4 million, about €6 million. The bidding went even higher than that, reaching more than £4 million, but the reserve wasn't met, so it remained unsold.
€6,200,000.
Lot 130 is that Enzo prototype. No doubt good for spares and repairs, estimated at €150,000, about £100,000.
110,000. 110,000 for number 66. 120 with Donatella on the telephone. 130,000, sir. 160,000. Your bid, sir. 170,000. Il lotto 131.
Lot 131 is the Pope's Enzo, estimated at €1 million or $700,000.
880. It's 900,000 now. 950 against you. 950,000, sir. Last try. Football charity. For you, Ben. €950,000. Ladies and gentlemen, lot number 133 is the Ferrari F1 2004. The car you're seeing here displayed.
Remember, the estimate on this Schumacher race car was €2 million.
Still under Ferrari's normal terms and conditions for purchasing a Formula One car. And for this lot, the bid is with me, ladies and gentlemen, at $1,500,000 with me. $1,500,000, $1,600,000, $1,700,000 is with me. $1,800,000, $1,900,000 is already with me. The bid is at $2 million for the car now with Albertine. Bid with Caroline now at $2,200,000 against you, Albertine. Then we make it $2,400,000. It's with Albertine at $2,400,000. I'm selling to Albertine at $2,400,000. Selling for you, Albertine, $2,400,000.
With buyer's premiums, that's £1.8 million for your very own F1 car. The intensive selling continued as we got ever closer to lot 25, the Schumacher seat we wanted for ourselves. The producer had set me a strict limit of €6,000, which is about $4,000.
Actually started to get a bit nervous. It's kind of... there was quite a lot of tension. Wondering whether you're going to get it or not.
For you, Albertine.
Da Michael Schumacher, Schumacher Bucket Driving Seat, 2001. Grazie offerta.
Oh, he's outbid me.
2,200 with me. And 500. 2,800, 2,800 here. 3,000, 3,000. And 200, 3,200. And 500, 3,500.
He's not going to get me.
3,800, 3,800 against you, sir. 4,000 in fondo. 4,000. 4,200, grazie. 4,500 in fondo. 4,800 here. 5,000, 5,000. The back of the room against you, sir.
Don't get carried away.
You want to try the last?
Remember, we're bidding in euros and 6,000 is our absolute limit.
I'm selling. Lo giudico per 5,000, sicuro? 5,500. 5,500. 6,000. 6,000.
Come on, stop.
A 6.000 giudico in fondo, se non ci sono altre offerte, per 6.000 euro. A 6.000 euro, 6,000 euros, I'm selling now at the back of the room, se non ci sono altre offerte. 6.000 giudico? 6.000, è sua. Grazie, 58.
Come on, that's mine. That was exciting.
Oh, so this is it, Michael Schumacher's actual seat. It is super cool, isn't it?
Very, very cool.
Now, the story doesn't end quite there because I went to meet Michael Schumacher, and that story is coming up later on in the series. But when I met him, I got him to sign it, which he did in a beautiful gold pen. Tom, how much exactly did you spend on it at the end of the day?
Well, funny story to that, because including the shipping, it actually came in at about $6,000. But, you know, it's one hell of a piece of furniture.
It is. It's awesome. Talk me through it.
Well, obviously, look, gold insulates his lovely bottom from any heat soak you might get in that F1 car. Carbon fibre, one-handed, please, take hold of that. Very, very light.
That's incredibly light, isn't it?
Big piece of thing.
Yeah.
Very, very light. And see all these yellow bits in here?
Yeah.
They're all actually airbags. So you'd have a little can of compressed air, and watch. During the race, you can pump up his seat, bit of extra comfort. Long left-hander, you know, pump it up. Obviously, £6,000 worth of stuff. We've decided to display it in our office, so we've had this built.
Now, this is a splendid design and a nice bit of welding, if I may say so.
Big up the fabricators.
Indeed.
Big up the fabricators. And this is Schumacher seat going in to our rather lovely fabricated Schumacher seat staging.
And I am going to have to sit in it because it's his seat.
Oh, be careful, Vicky.
I'm going to sit in Schumacher's 200-mile-an-hour plus seat. Wow. There is not much room in here, as you would expect. He is a very slim man.
Now, what we've decided to do is share the world's most exclusive throne with you lot.
Yes, if you want to come to the office, meet the gang, and, just like Cinderella and her slipper, see if you can slide into Schumacher's seat, then all you have to do, Tom, is
sign on to our rather spangly new website, which is www.5.tv/5thgear.
As usual, manufacturers have been showing off various concept cars over the summer. But this film from Mazda is all about the one that caught our eye. Meet the concept called Sarso, which proves that sensible cars don't have to be boring. It's Mazda's idea of the perfect car for the first-time buyer. And it's supposed to be fun, economical and green, thanks to a 1-litre turbocharged 3-cylinder petrol engine. It automatically turns itself off when you stop at traffic lights to cut down on pollution. The design is inspired by the Japanese art of shoji, where very thin rice paper doors just show the outline of what's hidden behind them. The door handles reveal themselves only when you approach the car, and the front and rear light units are concealed within the bodywork. The inside is definitely a sign of things to come. Rather than using a key to start it, we'll use a USB stick. The idea is to load the memory stick up with sat-nav data or favourite music from your home PC, which then automatically downloads to the car's internal hard disk. The rear seat has a compressed air system which enables it to morph into various shapes and sizes. It's only a concept, but if we were Mazda, we'd get rid of the so-so Mazda 2 and get the Sarso on sale as quickly as possible.
Still to come, we've got Vicky driving the pants off a 911 in our latest shootout, and I'll be finding out if racing drivers make good fighter pilots.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside, especially when I have cars like this to pit against each other. First up for this series shootouts is the Porsche 911 Carrera S. It's got a 3.8-litre engine and 355 bhp. Tiff drove it earlier in the year and said it was unbelievable on the track. To make things interesting, we're going to put it up against another of our favourite driving cars, the bantamweight Lotus Exige. This is the brand new Sports 240R model. It's got a supercharged 1.8-litre Toyota engine and produces 240 bhp. So, what do you think's going to win? The more powerful heavy car or the less powerful lighter car? Place your bets.
This 911 costs £65,000. But for that, you get a car that is brilliant on A roads, B roads, motorways, dual carriageway, in town, all sorts. Worth every penny? You betcha. It's a first to be fitted with the Porsche Active Suspension Management, which basically lowers the car by 10 millimetres to make it really good for track work. I love getting this thing sideways. This thing is just so wonderful. Beautiful, big, beefy brakes that tell you exactly what's going on. Beautiful steering. Awesome sound. Listen to that engine. That's fabulous. Now, I'm not here to wax lyrical about such a machine. I'm here to wring its neck. Start the stopwatch. I just have to be a little bit careful not to put the power on too early and not to go into the corners too quickly.
The 911 crosses the line in 52.60 seconds.
Just 50 Exige 240Rs will be made, and yes, you will pay for that exclusivity. A fiver under £44,000. That is 14 grand more expensive than a standard Exige. So what do you get for your extra cash? Well, you get 50 bhp more, a fancy interior, uprated brakes, adjustable dampers and an adjustable front anti-roll bar. Basically, a Porsche Active Suspension Management, but with spanners. This Exige is a barely disguised track car, but it is road legal. You sit really far forward in it, which is good because you are almost on top of the front wheels, which makes you feel exactly what is going on all the time. Such a fabulous, nimble rear-wheel drive chassis. Steering that is just so direct, my hands might as well move the tyres. Brakes that are pin sharp. And have I told you about the grip? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I have never driven a car with quite so much grip. Start that clock.
At the radar, the X-Siege is a gnat's whisker ahead. But that tiny advantage has been reversed by the hairpin. And the Porsche holds on to its slim lead to win by just 0.18 of a second.
Now, we've been going to Anglesey for about 3 years now, and it's a track we really love. It's full of tight, twisty bends with little room for error, and it really rewards a good handling car, unlike some airfield circuits I could mention. But what we do with our shootouts is about half a dozen flying laps in each car, and it's the best lap time that counts. And Vicky and I begin to build up lists of cars we've driven, and with all my new toys here, we can see this is Vicky's list, and she's been quickest so far on the Noble M400 at 49.54. And now I can add in, if I can spell Porsche,
oh, it's going to go wrong there.
P-O-R-S-C-H-E 911. And the time, Victor, in the Porsche was
52.6 seconds.
52.60. And if I enter that on your list, it comes underneath the Mitsubishi Evo 8 FQ400, which is quite a surprise. We'll move on. You were comparing with the Lotus.
L-O-T-U-S.
I can almost do that one. I just put me scrolls back into the right holes and places. L-O-T, that's easy to spell, isn't it? Except 240R. Time in the little Lotus was
52.78.
52.78.
Do you want your glasses, Tiff?
No, that's fine. I'm fine. I can see very well, thank you. Entering that, thank you, Jason. And we knew it came just behind the Porsche, but ahead of the two Mercedes you've tried so far. But basically, that's still a really shock result to me. On paper, I thought little Lotus, it's lighter, it's got a better power-to-weight ratio, it goes from 0 to 60.7 quicker. You didn't like it, didn't get on with Lotus? What's the problem?
I did really like it, and I did get on with it. But I think the Porsche maybe just suited my driving style a bit better. I can move the Porsche's weight around a bit, more agile, so I can sort of turn.
You're not going to get away with that.
Right, moving on now. Time for what is undoubtedly the most exciting film I've ever made. Have you ever wondered if fighter pilots make good drivers and drivers make good fighter pilots? Well, we have, and we've decided to find out. So today, I'm going to be teaching someone how to drive this, and in return, they're going to be teaching me how to fly this.
We've been given unprecedented access to the Navy's Air Force, the Fleet Air Arm. And we've come to the same base where Prince Charles learnt to fly. It's home to the Commando Helicopter Force and the Sea Harrier. Chris Roy joined the Navy at 18, and now 25 is their youngest Harrier pilot. But do the skills that make him a Top Gun mean he can drive a supercar? We'll find out in the 205-mile-an-hour Ford GT, but not before the Navy have found out if a racing driver has the ability to fly in formation and hover a £20 million jet. The mission starts with a medical. You simply can't fly in a fast jet if you're not totally healthy. Even if you've got a cold, they won't let you up. They test blood pressure, your eyesight, and take a urine sample.
Have you got a bigger bottle?
To check for blood or infections. Then you're hooked up to an electrocardiogram to make sure the heart is ticking as it should be.
Am I 6 foot?
But even if all that is passed, you're still not guaranteed to fly.
So this is the anthropology check where they measure all my limbs to see, A, that I'll fit in the jet, but more importantly, I'll fit correctly on the ejection seat, because if we need to get out, then if my legs are too short or certain bones aren't the right length, then it's no go, I'm afraid.
Luckily, I was the right shape, so I was off to be kitted out like a pilot. All your equipment needs to fit like a Savile Row suit. The classic bone dome is adjusted so it's not too tight, because the last thing you need at 600 mile an hour is a headache.
That's good. Hand side to side.
Obviously, you need a perfect seal on your oxygen mask, but because everyone's face is a different shape, it's a case of trial and error to find the correct fit. But the most important piece of kit you need is a pair of anti-G trousers.
This clips into the seat, and the seat or the plane will know how much G we're pulling, and once we go over a certain threshold, it'll pump air in here, which squeezes my abdomen and my thighs and my calves, and it stops blood from leaving my brain and my heart and down my legs. Hopefully stop you blacking out.
Fully kitted out, it was time for Chris, our pilot, to show me round his office, the Sea Harrier FA2. That's F for fighter and A for attack.
So Jason, this is the Sea Harrier FA2, single seat, multi-role fighter. The business end is the Blue Vixen radar at the front there.
That's right behind here?
Yeah, that's our air intercept radar. We use that to track and find enemy aircraft before we shoot various different kinds of missiles at them. This is a Sidewinder acquisition round. So that when we practice, just like in the films, in here you've got the seeker head off the missile. It'll lock onto the heat source of the enemy aircraft. We'll get the tone in our helmet. We'll get all the diamonds and things in the HUD, just like in the movies. And we can practice killing them. Obviously, the main way we hover is these. These 4 nozzles are all connected to the engine. And when we pull that third lever in the cockpit, that's why you need 3 hands to fly the Harrier, these will point down, point your thrust down away, and you can hover.
It's an incredibly simple system. Originally, they thought that making a 25-ton plane hang in the sky would need 3 engines. But then some ingenious Brit said it could be done with 1 big engine that had movable exhausts. Its manoeuvrability makes the Harrier brilliant in a dogfight.
Chris, this dogfighting stuff,
yeah,
how does that work then?
Dogfighting for us is when it's gone wrong and we've got in close. We practice it all the time. It's our bread and butter. We call it a knife fight in a phone box because everybody's really close. Everybody's got a lot of weapons. There's jets going everywhere, going all over the place. You're shouting at each other on the radio, and it's all about killing the guy as quickly as possible. We tend to try and get numerical advantage, so we go 2v1.
I mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? You are basically just sat on a huge Pegasus Rolls-Royce engine.
Yeah, 21,500 pounds of thrust. It gives one of the best accelerations for a non-afterburning jet in the world. And it'll get us to 540 knots, which is gusting 600 miles an hour at low level at 250 feet. It's pretty quick.
I'll be going up in the Black T-Bird, a special twin-seater that's used for training. Commander Henry Mitchell, the guy in overall charge of the Sea Harrier Force, will fly me, while Chris runs alongside to show us some moves. And just to make sure you see as much as possible, they're scrambling a camera vehicle, a Hawk jet no less, as used by the Red Arrows. The weather was closing in, but it simply doesn't faze these guys. They can just fly above it. Having set off from Dorset, they can be above Wales in 15 minutes, and at 27,000 feet, it was time for Lesson 1, formation flying.
I didn't realise how close you fly together. It's amazing. Oh, yeah. Well, you have to. If you get too far apart, you lose sight of each other. Yeah.
The pilots constantly make tiny corrections to keep rock steady. Think of the small steering adjustments you do on a motorway at 70. It takes an even finer touch at 300 miles an hour.
Right, now it's not actually the easiest speed to formate at. Right. You have control? Okay, I have control. Yeah, it's so sensitive, isn't it? Yes. It's a few years of practice. Come back, you bugger. Come back. Very easy to get into a pilot-induced oscillation. Yeah, it is, isn't it?
But you know what? After a few goes, I started to get the hang of it.
That's very good, Jason. It's coming on nicely. Almost a thought process rather than putting an input into the stick. You almost just got to think about what's going to happen and the plane reacts. The fun isn't over yet, Jason. Okay.
Because Lesson 2 was hovering, We headed back to the air station, but that's after a few moves.
We're doing not quite 40, but we're going around the loop. Fantastic.
Back at base, I saw firsthand how you hover by pointing the exhaust downwards. This would require even more dexterous ability, and it's likened to balancing a ball bearing on a tea tray. And just to focus my mind even more, if there's an engine failure, I've got less than a second to eject.
Okay, you have control. I have control. Right, you can look to the side. Yeah. Let's bring the stick back a bit. So you've gradually drifted forward. So bring the nose back up to the right attitude. Okay, like that. Otherwise we'll drift forward again. Oh, come on, you little tinker. Yep. And can we do a nod to the crowd? This has to be quick because we don't have a great deal of fuel. Yeah. Good for hovering. Fantastic.
Only 194 people have hovered a Harrier solo, which means more people have been in space. I can only imagine how tough it must be at night on the pitching deck of a carrier. As a final treat, I was shown the huge acceleration involved in the ski jump takeoff. 25 tons gets airborne in just 300 metres.
Okay, are you ready? I'm ready to go. Excellent. Love you. That is absolutely awesome, isn't it? I didn't put my back out. I can't believe it accelerates that quick. This is one hell of a plane.
The Harrier accelerates to 60 in about 3 seconds. That's the same as the Ford GT. Join us after the break to see how well a pilot can handle that. Before the break, you saw me learning to fly a Sea Harrier as we try to find out how similar fighter jets are to supercars. Now it's time to see how good a pilot is on the track. When the Harrier first came into service, Ford brought out the original GT40. Today's version has a supercharged V8, does 205 miles an hour, and costs 120 grand. For your first-time track car, it's about as scary as it gets. But I reckon our pilot's up to it.
So, Chris, I've got a sneaky feeling that you fast jet pilots can be good at driving cars. So I think there's similarities between what I do in a race car and flying jets. Okay. It's all having feel and touch.
So if it starts to slide out, you lift the power off, or do you keep it on?
It's a balancing act. It's a little bit lifting
but
the
you
power.
don't want to lift off too much.
No, because then
you're unsettling the back end again.
Exactly.
It's the same flying jets. You got to look after it and be smooth, and if you don't, it will get away from you quickly. Not only the back end spinning out, but in the Harrier it'll flip on its back.
Right, I am going to move my seat a bit forward so I can grab the wheel if I need to. You know, you said the investment in you is worth 6 million.
Yeah.
It's not that for me, but I'm still quite important, so let's be having it in a straight line.
And just for the first couple of laps, we kindly organised another Ford GT to show Chris the racing line. Not quite formation flying, but close. Chris's natural instinct was to be smooth, but I spotted 3 areas where he could improve.
Hands on wheel. Try and put them at, say, 2:45 and keep them there. Can you see your feet in the wheel?
As opposed to holding it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold the wheel. So it's bind across your arms, whereas if you keep taking your hands off, you lose the feel. Now, one of the common mistakes everyone does when they first start driving a car on the track is they all turn in too early.
Okay.
Keep out, keep out, keep out. Now turn half as much as you did last time, half as much.
Okay.
Now that looks like you're going to go off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're not though. See what I mean? You need to try and keep looking a long way ahead.
Heel and toe is a black art. It's where you blip the throttle whilst braking to make gear changes smoother. The trouble is, there are 3 pedals, but you've only got 2 feet, so it takes a bit of fancy footwork.
It's a bit like, you know, trying to do 3 things at once, which you can do with flying jets. It's a rhythm. It's a feel. So, we'll get you in, let you have a go.
Okay.
So, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Go on, have a little break and then a little... there you go. Yeah. That sort of feel. That's it. So a little rev. Clutch up. Perfect. Spot on. Can you feel how smooth that was? Like the car almost didn't know it had changed gear.
No, it just stays settled. It doesn't jump around.
That's exactly what you said. Well, you can do it. You've done it once. You can do it 10 times.
Well, almost.
I think that's 4.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
That'll cover it.
Does it feel quick?
It does accelerate amazingly well. It's a bigger rush than in a jet.
Really?
It's a lot, because it's so close to the ground, yeah. Yeah.
Mission accomplished. Right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to teach you the automotive equivalent of hovering a Harrier. Spear off here. We're going to teach you how to do a controlled power slide round some concentric circles.
Power sliding is difficult at the best of times, but trying to keep it between the circles makes it the ultimate test of whether your car control is up to scratch.
I'll be working the throttle, the steering, feeling what's going on, trying to anticipate to make sure it's a smooth, nice, progressive slide.
Okay.
So let's see if we can get it going.
Just like that, huh?
Yeah. And I'll get it so I can almost hold everything still.
Okay.
There. And that's just...
So you're just playing the throttle to keep the back end?
Just tiny little adjustments with the throttle. Tiny small changes. So. That's your turn.
Good.
And the moment you feel its bum on the move, is get ready. Go on. Catch it. Catch it. Catch it. Catch it. Catch it. Gentle. Oh, nearly. It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, dude. See, you made it look so easy.
Tough, eh?
Yeah, pretty difficult.
Well, the question I want to ask, do you think it's harder than hovering a Harrier?
I think so, yeah, definitely.
Look at that, down to the canvas. 400 quid's worth of tyre destroyed in the aid of science.
Good boys.
But Jason, I mean, obviously you'd make a good fighter pilot.
Thank you very much, Tim.
But would all fighter pilots straight away be good racing drivers?
Yeah, I think with a little bit of practice they would. I mean, you know, the thing I found out on the day was they learn so quickly and they just have that extra bit of feel which you have, and all good drivers have, where you know what it's like on the limit. It's just the small little bits you do makes the difference, and I have to say I was impressed.
Well, the fun and games continue next week when Jason gets his hand on Pagani's new Zonda F and I get the opportunity of a lifetime when I test a Williams Grand Prix car.
In the meantime, don't forget to enter the competition to win our superb Aston Martin DB7. See you next week.
Lines close at midday on Monday the 17th of October, and you can also enter the competition via our brand new website at 5.tv/fifthgear.
How cool would that be? Pity I'm not allowed to enter. Right, coming up next on 5, our Hidden Lives series continues as we follow the life of a female bodybuilder as she tries to qualify for the ultimate bodybuilding competition. That's after a 5 News update.